If you want to go beyond the rink and into the dressing room, there's only one place to be, the Hockeyverse, with your hosts, Michael Trakos and Johnny Legend.
Oh boy, what a game. What a series. Where do we start? Well, there was Steven Stamkos fighting Auston Matthews and Ryan O'Reilly being, guess what, the X Factor. But if I'm going to pick out one player, one contribution, I'm going with Morgan Rielly. Morgan Rielly is back in a big, big way. That's the takeaway from what was a wild Game 3, 4-3 overtime win by the Maple Leafs over the Lightning on Saturday. This was the Morgan Rielly that we've come to know over the years. This is the guy that the Leafs were missing all season long. Yeah, Morgan Rielly may never win a Norris. He's not Cale Makar or Adam Fox or even Victor Hedman. You can even argue that he's not really a true number one defenseman. But on this team, he is Toronto's best. And in Game 2 and again in Game 3, he was the best defenseman, period. There was obviously the 4 assists from the other night. But in Game 4, he had an overtime goal. And perhaps more importantly, he had a hit that I think set a tone for the rest of the game and the series. You know, and for a team that didn't get a whole lot of run support from their back end, and can you guess who led the Leafs in goals this year from the back end? It wasn't Rielly. It wasn't even a guy who was playing on Saturday night. Rielly's contributions are essential. And in this series, he could be the difference between advancing or not advancing in the second round. With that and more on today's edition of the Hockeyverse.
You just found the world's latest and greatest hockey, sports, and entertainment podcast. This is the Hockeyverse. On today's episode, we recap that wild Game 3 between the Leafs and Lightning with special guest David Alter of the Hockey News and look ahead to Game 4. By the way, check out our show notes for timestamps and if you want to fast forward to your favorite part. Also, if you want to be on a future episode, email your question to heyhockeyverse.com. And Luke Shen, for the love of God, can you teach Auston Matthews how to throw a punch? Let's go.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
You want Auston Matthews fighting now after what you saw on Saturday, or you just want him protecting himself?
Well, yeah, I don't want to see that again.
You don't.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Well, you know what? That was just a wild, wild game. I think that game had everything. Like, obviously, it was the distance, went overtime, but you had the goal he pulled. You had, like you said, Steven Stamkos and Auston Matthews dropping the gloves, or at least one guy dropping the glove.
Three gloves dropped.
Matthews has to remember that if you're fighting, you gotta drop both gloves.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who's more embarrassed, Auston Matthews for that fight or for the referees for calling it a fight.
Well, it was a fight.
Well, usually you got to drop both gloves and face the guy you're fighting.
I hear you. But I was kind of thinking when all that stuff was going on, oh boy, and they kept flashing Pat Maroon on the TV. I was thinking, this is where Wayne Simmons could come in real handy right now, because you don't want Matthews. Like, we can joke all we want about Matthews having to take fighting lessons, but whether it's Stamkos fighting him or Maroon fighting him or whoever, you don't want that situation at all.
Well, not just that. Don't forget Kucherov fought too.
Yeah.
Kucherov fought Rielly. That's how he got the nose, and they didn't even show that because they were too busy showing Auston Matthews and Steven Stamkos doing whatever they were doing. And look at... Do you think that was a coaching move? Because they got all those guys, the Leafs studs off the ice for 9 minutes.
So you think Tampa was trying to drag those guys off the ice?
That's what I like. Why else would Stamkos do that? That's the first time in the history of the NHL 260 goal scorers have gotten a fight.
Well, if you're getting Matthews off the ice, well, then Toronto's happy that Stamkos is also coming off the ice.
Yeah.
So why would Tampa want that?
But you had Stamkos, or you had O'Reilly, and Matthews off the ice for 9 minutes.
True, but who was off for Tampa? Was it Kucherov and Stamkos and Braden Point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what I'm saying is the Leafs didn't initiate that. Tampa initiated.
I would argue that Morgan Rielly initiated.
But if you watch it, he really hid that push well.
It was
he didn't even take his hand off his stick. He kind of.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Leaf fan or not, that was a dirty play.
But he hit it so well that really didn't, like the ref said, no penalty on the play after reviewing.
See, that's what I was shocked about. I thought Morgan Rielly, and I'm going to say Morgan O'Reilly, and we've already called him O'Reilly.
Man.
So I don't know. One of these guys either dropped the O or the other guy grabbed the O because it's going to confuse the hell out of us. However, Morgan Rielly's hit, I was surprised it wasn't a 5-minute major. I thought for sure he was getting tossed. I was even more surprised when I saw Braden Point come back in the game because it looked like he was just, I was like, Braden Point's done for the year.
I said right away, because, I mean, everybody's crashing into the boards. The way that he grabbed himself, he knocked the wind out. He had the wind knocked out.
Oh.
That's what I think. I think he had the wind. Because that's why he got up and tried to skate, couldn't breathe, went back down, grabbed his, he was grabbing right where you got the wind knocked out of you, right?
See,
that's why
there was
I
no
think
give on the bottom of the board there.
Oh, no.
You get hammered into the bottom of the boards, like it's just going into concrete, basically.
Oh, no, he's super lucky that that's all that he got was the wind knocked out. He's not going to be, he's going to be bruised up today.
Who knows? He might have cracked a rib.
Could have.
Like, would you be surprised if, like, after the playoffs are done, we hear, Braden Point was playing with 3 cracked ribs, a torn labrum in his shoulder, and, a bunch of other stuff.
And he got hit in the neck in game 1 with a shot, right?
I love Braden Point. If all the guys who scares you in overtime, Braden Point is that guy. Like, just clutch. What was it, last 3 years? No one has scored more playoff goals than him. I think he might even also lead overtime goals during that period. Like, he's the guy that you want on the ice in a tie game. And, we're going to have David Alter on later. He wrote an interesting story for the Hockey News where he talked about that was the kind of game that Toronto typically loses. And Game 6 last year, that was a similar kind of thing where you go into overtime. I think Matthews either hit a post in OT, then Braden Point comes back and wins it. This time around, the hockey gods are shining on Toronto now.
Well, Hall put one off the post, too, in overtime. That long shot from the blue line, ripped it right off the inside of the post because it shot 90 degrees.
He had a good game, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like that one play where he rushed towards the net and Kucherov hooked him, I was like, wow, like Hall's showing some wheels here, some offensive instincts. So it was an amazing game.
Yeah, there were a couple times where I'm like, who's that? That's Hall?
Yeah.
Like, when did he get fast?
So let's start here. Morgan Rielly, this is the best we've seen him. How important is he to the back end? And can you name the defenseman who led the Leafs in goals this year?
The defenseman that led was it Sandin?
Sandin was tied with Rielly for second.
Oh, was he?
Number 1 is Timothy Liljegren.
Really?
Yeah, 6 goals.
He's in the press box. 6 goals.
Yeah, so they didn't get a whole lot of offense from the back end. And I think that was the one thing that going into the trade deadline, I thought they were going to address in terms of, do they get a big power play type of point shot like a Brian McCabe back in the day, someone that can just fire the puck. They didn't really get that, but if Morgan Rielly can, send those seeing eye wristers like he did in overtime, like he is their X factor on the back end in my mind.
Yeah, there was that one camera view from the net where it showed like Vasilevskiy's view, and you couldn't see Rielly. You couldn't see that puck coming at all.
Again, you got 4 goals past Vasilevskiy.
Yeah, again.
And none of them were really stinkers.
Nope.
Like the Matthews tip was a good one. The Achari goal was a good one.
That was a good setup by Matthew Nyes, too.
Yeah. Matthew Nyes, man. I'm liking this guy with every game he plays.
I'm watching, and he's got the flashes of superstar, and then he's got he's just a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, he goes back and forth, right? And it's part of the learning process, right?
Mm-hmm. You know what I like? They show him on the bench, and he just looks like John Tavares 2.0. Like, no smile.
Just stoic.
Yeah, like Mitch Marner they show sometimes, and he's, like, singing along to whatever song's playing over the PA. They show Matthew Nyes, and it's just like he's the Ivan Drago, just staring straight ahead.
Yeah, and how about Samsonov? That Tampa Bay owned that overtime.
Yeah. No, he's proving himself to be a legit goalie, and I got into this argument with just a Leaf fan at my kid's baseball practice the other day, and he was saying that the Leafs don't advance, Kyle Dubas should get fired, and I'm just like, oh, God. That's chum in the water for me, right? Like, I just want to argue with him now.
Obviously somebody that doesn't listen to the podcast.
No, and his whole reason was, well, he didn't get a goalie. And I was like, well, they got Samsonov. And he's like, Samsonov's, he's nothing. He's not going to win a cup. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. But so far along, like aside from game one, Samsonov has not given you any indication that this guy is not a capable number one goalie.
But can we write off game one as they just weren't in the playoffs yet?
Hey, man, it doesn't
Because
matter
they've
what
been
goalie
a
you
totally
had.
different team. Like, everybody sucked in game one.
Everyone sucked in game one, including Samsonov. However, everyone has been better since then. Mm-hmm. So you've got like up and down the lineup, and I think a lot of this is because of the lineup. Like you've got Ryan O'Reilly now with Achari and Nyes for 2 straight games, and I think everything looks different now from a forward group.
Yeah,
like what Ryan O'Reilly has allowed the Leafs to do in terms of matchups, and like he's good on the power play, obviously, and I think he gives them a second unit now where if things aren't also good, you don't have to have that first unit out for basically a minute and change.
Mm-hmm. And face-offs, how important are face-offs, especially on that overtime goal.
Yeah, he wins the face-off.
He doesn't lose face-offs.
Yeah, it was great.
And that one play where he was coming in on the, the hounded breakaway, and he fired it off the end boards, passed to himself.
Yeah, smart, eh?
Yeah.
No, I like him a lot.
That used to be, like, remember way back in the day when Rielly was young and they had Jake Gardner?
When Rielly was young.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah, but they had Jake Gardner and Rielly. They were both young guys, and they'd just blow up the ice, and they'd fire it off the end boards to the other one, and nobody could stop that for a while because they were just too fast.
You know what's funny? Like, Morgan Rielly is so old right now that he was there for, like, the Phil Kessel years.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at, like, who has been through the quote-unquote, like, shit of this team. Like, Luke Schenn was there for some bad years, and then he left. Won a cup, comes back. But poor Morgan Rielly, he's been through thick and thin with this team. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember when they got John Tavares, and there was all the talk about, like, who's going to be the captain, and obviously Tavares ends up getting it. And people were saying it's either Tavares or Matthews. I still thought that, like,
I thought it was going to be Rielly, too.
Morgan Rielly was the perfect choice in my mind. Like, you don't have to worry about, like, hurting one guy's feelings if it's Tavares over Matthews or vice versa, because you're giving it to a defenseman. And, the way he's playing right now kind of reminds me of Duncan Keith, Chicago Blackhawks winning Stanley Cups after Stanley Cup. And Keith was out there for, like, basically the whole game, just controlling everything. Mm-hmm. And maybe, I know you brought it up a number of times, is the fact that he's got Luke Schenn there. It changes everything.
Yeah, he's freewheeling a lot more.
Yeah, and he didn't have Schenn during the regular season, and he didn't have that defense partner, that steady presence.
Well, he always had that. He always had that in the back of his head. He's like, okay, I can go up, but I got to get back.
Yeah.
Right? Now he doesn't really have that. Like, he's got to get back. He's got to get back, but he doesn't have to worry about getting back.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, I think Brody was probably the best partner for him, but it makes more sense to have each guy in a different line. So having Schenn there, it just makes the lineup just make sense. And it took a while because Kyle Dubas makes all those trades. It was almost like a giant puzzle that had just been, like, spilled on the floor, and you had to put all the pieces together again. And I think the Leafs have really centered in on this lineup. And
I think it's dialed in.
Yeah, what do you do with Michael Bunting Game 5?
I think Michael Bunting is in the press box.
Does it matter if they win or lose Game 4?
No.
I think you're right. I think if they lose Game 4, and I think we're going to go back to Toronto tied 2-2, you keep the same lineup. The only change I would make, maybe Sam Lafferty comes out, Wayne Simmons comes in.
Yeah, Wayne Simmons for sure.
I'm going to be on this Wayne train for, like, a long time, man.
Yeah, and remember I talked about it before the playoffs started, Wayne Simmons, and everybody was like, no, Wayne Simmons is not going to play another game. Wayne Simmons is not making it in the playoffs. And I'm like, Wayne Simmons, you will see Wayne Simmons in the playoffs.
You still think we're going to see him at some point?
Because I think Rielly now has a target on his back, and I think game 4 is going to be nasty. Game 5 was
nastier than what we saw?
I think it's going to be nastier. The Leafs are just hurting them. The Leafs are putting them through the ringer.
So every time I mention Wayne Simmons, I get, like, this crazy, crazy hate. I'm going to try to bring up some of this stuff here.
Oh, you got a bunch of Wayne Simmons hate?
Oh, man. It's like people don't like Wayne Simmons, it seems like.
I liked Wayne Simmons when he played for Philadelphia. I've liked him all the way back then. But then we all know who my favorite Leaf of all time was, right?
Ken Baumgartner. You know what's funny? It's like the Leafs have been trying to get Wayne Simmons from the Burke era. There was a trade that almost happened when he was in Philly, when he ended up going to L.A., where Burke was offering Nazem Kadri. I believe that was he was part of a trade, and it just didn't materialize.
Burke was trying to trade Nazem Kadri since before he was drafted. Remember, he was trying to make that trade on the draft floor.
Look at this. So I mentioned Wayne Simmons coming in. Nope, useless player, and we don't want to play into Tampa's trap. Like, what trap would that be? Another person said Kyle Clifford before Simmons, 100%.
No. How many goals Kyle Clifford score?
This guy says, Mick West, be like dressing a fat maroon. No, sir. Another guy says, you want him for the Marley series?
Wow.
So, and terrible, what is this? Terrible idea. So, this guy here, he's like, why? The Leafs have managed with the rough stuff just fine. And that's the one argument I would say against not needing a Wayne Simmons is that, yeah, between Shen, Giordano, and Morgan Rielly, who, let's not forget, last year in Game 1, bloodied up a Tampa defenseman also. Like, he's not afraid of that. And if you ever meet Morgan Rielly, you'll notice that this guy is built thick. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like almost like a Sidney Crosby-esque body, like big lower half, very strong guy. I think he had like at the personal trainer that he went to, who trains like a ton of NHLers. Apparently, Rielly has like a vertical jump that just like destroys everyone. Like he could dunk a basketball. This guy.
Yeah, even with the bad knees.
Yeah. Does he have bad knees?
Well, he had knee surgery. He had a big knee surgery when he was in.
Oh, that's right.
Or out in the West.
Yeah, the year that he got drafted.
Yeah,
that's true. No, even with the bad knees, I guess you're right.
Yeah, well, and I think he had another one since he's been on the Leafs, hasn't he? He's a Leafer for life.
Something was bothering him this year. Quite possibly could be the knees
or his defense partner.
Yeah, I don't know, but as I mentioned, I was like, "Oh, where was this Rielly during the regular season?" Everyone's like, well, "All that matters is he's back now," and you're right. All that matters right now is that Morgan Rielly is playing the best hockey that he's played all year, and he saved it for this time.
And this is when we need it.
Yeah, that's when the Leafs need it for sure.
And how about Matthews finally scoring?
He had a strong game. Like I said, unfortunately, gets in that fight. So what did you think? You honestly don't think that Stamkos was just like, in my mind, I see Stamkos fighting Matthews purely as our guy in Stamkos' mind right now. He thinks Braden Point's done for the season, done for the playoffs.
Yeah,
so he's pissed off,
trying to take out,
and he's like, "Well, you just took out questionably like arguably our best player." Either him or Kucherov or Stamkos, right? Those three are the best players. You just took out our best player. I'm grabbing your best player and
starts punching him in the face.
Yeah. Honestly, if I'm a Tampa fan, I love that.
Yeah. Well, I love it too if I'm a Tampa fan, but I'm not.
Yeah. I was loving it. I'm like, good on Stamkos. Honestly, like, I think he might go down as one of the best leaders, best captains in NHL history.
And I played a little bit of softball with Stamkos in Unionville, and he's a great guy.
He's awesome, man. I got to know him a lot over the years, and just a class guy. And honestly, if Tavares had say if the roles were reversed and Marner goes hard into the boards and he leaves the game, you want Tavares grabbing someone and taking a number,
100%.
Right?
But I don't think Tavares...
Does Tavares do that?
I don't know.
Because I didn't expect it out of Stamkos.
I don't know. Maroon went after Tavares in third period overtime.
Yeah, but it's one thing to, like, you rely on your goon to do it. And it's another to say, Stamkos, when's the last time he got into a legit fight to do it?
Yeah.
Like, that plays off big, man. And that's why I'm saying, like, when you're talking about legit captains and a guy that'll go down with the Messiers and the Jonathan Tays and some of the greats to ever have a C on their jersey, back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. Coming into that, you remember the game, the series in the bubble?
Yeah.
Stamkos didn't play at all. Then
he played one game. Yeah,
played just like one shift.
And he got 3 points or something,
Two shifts and gets a goal.
Yeah.
And then just skedaddles. And then you find out after, you're like, how did he even skate? Like,
yeah, didn't he have a broken leg or something?
Something was wrong with like a spleen or I don't know. It wasn't good. It wasn't something that you play hockey on.
Well, I'm screaming at the TV. Matthews is standing there, 2 sticks in his hand. The ref's holding Stamkos, and Stamkos is punching Matthews in the face. And I'm screaming, drop the sticks.
Well, maybe he was thinking, if I don't drop it, I don't
He'll
get
stop
a penalty.
punching me? Yeah, maybe he'll stop punching me.
It reminded me of Marchand kind of rabbit punching one of the Sedins.
Yeah.
And I was like, is he just going to just take punch after punch? And then all of a sudden, there was like a big punch thrown, and then Matthews' glove just went flying in the air. So it was a hell of a game. Mm-hmm. Hey, guess how many minutes Victor Hedman played?
Well, he played like 35, didn't he?
Yeah, you're close. 32, 35. So 32 and a half minutes, basically.
And him being hurt, and he is a gigantic human being.
Yeah, he really is huge.
6'7", 245.
So did he look hurt to you?
No.
That's amazing, eh?
But that's also scary because we know he's hurt, or he wouldn't have missed game 2.
Yeah, and he was, aside from Rielly, the best player or best defenseman on the ice that night. I was shocked when I looked at, because I was curious to see how many minutes he actually played, because it seemed like every shift he was on the ice. Mm-hmm. Rielly didn't play that much. I was going to make a mention. Well,
don't forget, Rielly was in a box for 9 minutes.
Yeah. So, how about that no goal? That was an important one. Mm-hmm. That I think they made the right call on that one.
They made the right call because the rule is when the ref loses sight, he blows the whistle, right? And it was under the pad, blew the whistle, and then it got poked out from under the pad. Maybe it was loose. Maybe you could see it from the front, but that's the rule.
Yeah.
Right? It's happened to the Leafs.
It's underneath you.
Yeah.
How was it loose?
Well, yeah, you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, it shouldn't have been a goal. Like, it was underneath him. He blows the whistle, then you poke it. Yeah, no goal. Mm-hmm. No complaints there, but that was huge. Like, it was just such a wild game.
It was good, though. I liked it. It got a little it was a little sloppy at the beginning, I thought.
Yeah.
But you remember, we called it in the last podcast. We called a lower scoring game, and we called overtime. So I don't know how people keep arguing with us and giving us hate on Twitter when we talk about Wayne Simmonds. We said that the X factor would be Ryan O'Reilly. We said that it would be Luke Schenn.
We said Vasilevskiy is human.
Yeah.
Which now, what is that, 7? He's given up, 14 goals in 3 games? Mm-hmm. That's a lot of goals.
It's a lot of goals.
And he hasn't looked bad. So
no,
if this is Vasilevskiy looking okay, and they're pumping goals by him.
And how much did, what were the shots, 38-23 or something for Tampa Bay?
Yeah.
So that shows how good Samsonov played.
Yeah.
He made some solid saves in overtime.
Dude, right now, Toronto's winning the goaltending battle. And they're winning the toughness battle, which are 2 battles that I don't think any of us predicted.
And the one that nobody ever talks about, the injury battle.
Is there a battle for injuries?
Well, I mean...
They're not getting hurt?
They're not getting hurt.
Yeah.
Or they're not getting injured.
I know it would probably be a lot better if you're a Leaf fan and Braden Point wasn't playing. But if Toronto's going to advance past Tampa, I want Hedman in the lineup. I want Point in the lineup, and I want Vasilevskiy playing at his level.
The way that he's playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want a legit win.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want this to be the Raptors where Kevin Durant is not in the final and everyone's
blows his Achilles in the...
Yeah, and then all the Toronto fans are cheering. That's BS in my mind.
Yeah,
Give me your best and then beat them.
Well, you need the best, right? You don't want an easy first round because then the second round's harder, man. You got the best teams in the league playing their best hockey of the year.
Yeah. You seem like you're very optimistic now. Like, you think that the series is...
I was optimistic before, remember? Leafs in 5? Remember Leafs in 5?
I don't know. Were you guys optimistic?
Remember we talked about it. You said, are you worried? And I said, not really.
Yeah, I guess you're right. We do have it on tape. Mm-hmm. Damn it.
I love being right.
Well, I think this one's going to go the distance.
I still think...
or maybe not the distance. I think it's going to go 6.
You think 6?
I think
you called 6 at the beginning, though.
Yeah, I still think Toronto in 6. So I think Tampa wins game 4, and Toronto takes the next 2.
I called Leafs in 5, so...
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say more like 1 out of 1,000,000.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Okay. You're dying to use that one.
I've been trying to use that one since I said Leafs in 5.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. Well, you know what I'd like to do right now there, Johnny? I'd like to go to the phone lines and call up our buddy David Alter, who's in Tampa Bay.
David Alter, the genius.
Yeah, in Tampa Bay, covering the series for the Hockey News and SI.com. He's going to be coming on, and we're going to chat with him about whether the hockey gods are finally smiling on the Leafs and what to make of Morgan Rielly. And, his thoughts on Game 3 and looking ahead to Game 4. So let's do that. Let's give old David Alter a call. And we are on with David Alter from Sports Illustrated and the Hockey News, who is live in Tampa Bay, was there for Game 3. Dave, what a game that was. It was wild. You got Matthews throwing punches with his glove on. Maybe not throwing a punch, but what was your big takeaway from Game 3 there in Tampa, Dave?
Yeah, that was great. It was really wild. I mean, the vibe was pretty good when Stamkos and Matthews started going at it. I thought, okay, well, this is something new. This is something we haven't seen, and it's also an intensity to this series that really has probably been needed for the Maple Leafs. I mean, you don't really see your core guys get involved in things like that, whether they were willing or not. I think that's just a spillover from some of the other physical guys that they brought in that, that spread. You got the Nola Charis, you got the Luke Shen, who are kind of mixing it up with the other side. And so now everyone's getting involved. And I think that's just great for the Maple Leafs that they're showing that different edge to them. And, it was great to see that from them. And just for their ability to overcome what looked like being outplayed for a lot of the game. Yeah, I know that they played well defensively, but Tampa was just right on top of them for much of that game, and for them to squeeze out a result in their favor, I think is something that bodes well for the Leafs. You just don't see these types of games come from.
Hey, Dave, that was as good of a game as I've ever seen Morgan Rielly play, and it's not the Morgan Rielly that we saw all season long. Is it safe to say that this guy's finally healthy? Whatever was nagging him during the year is in the rearview mirror right now. And you talked about playing with an edge, playing with intensity. That hit on Braden Point, I'm sure Tampa Bay fans didn't like it. Even myself, I was a little queasy. I thought Point was done. I was shocked that he came back in the game.
Yeah.
I thought broken shoulder, broken ribs, maybe both. How important is it that Morgan Rielly is contributing? Because when you look up and down that defense, there's not a whole lot of guys that can really spark things offensively. I think their number one goal scorer from the back end was Timothy Liljegren, who might not even see any action in these playoffs. So to have Morgan Rielly playing more like a number one defenseman, is that going to be the key going forward for the Leafs?
Yeah, I think it's a big difference maker for Toronto. I mean, you look at the regular season, it looked like he couldn't find his fit, whether it was his fault or not. It was just weird because he had those 2 injuries, and then when he came back, he had 5 different defensive partners. And I don't know if it was his fault or if it was felt that he's trying to find the right mix. And then now playing with Luke Shen, it seems to be like the right fit that he's got for much of that game. And then he's sliding back with Brody for a few shifts. So it's really different. I see a different Morgan Rielly, a focused player. Offensively, just being able to work, and I think that's just him feeling good and just rising to the occasion, knowing that these stakes are really high. A 4-assist night in Game 2, followed up by this, to just be able to put the puck on the net. It was kind of a weird floater. There's traffic. He surprises the goalie, but he got the job done. And so I think he's proven, despite some detractors, that, there were some people thinking, well, what if Morgan Rielly wasn't in the lineup? Would he be okay? I think this is where he shows that he's a different player in the playoffs, and he can eat up those minutes and be a game breaker for them.
Dave, where the hell are you doing this phoner from, man? It sounds like you're in a subway. Is there a subway in Tampa?
No, I'm on my AirPods outside. It's got noise canceling effect on it. So
what am I hearing in the background?
Is it bad quality?
No. I just something sounds funny there. I was like, is this guy like in the cavern or is he in a bunker?
There's music in the background of where I am outside, but it's got the noise canceling function, so it should be able to reduce most of it.
Hey, what's the vibe like there in Tampa? I love covering a game there. I was saying on Twitter last night, Tampa's top 3 arenas for me. Montreal, maybe MSG, and Tampa. And maybe Vegas sneaks in there. But how's the vibe?
It's incredible what winning will do to a market you wouldn't think would be a hockey city, right? Like, you win 2 Stanley Cups, they won in 2004. I guess there's some Canadian transplants with snowbirds and stuff, but the vibe is great here. You walk around, there's hockey-themed places, and people really get into it. And in the arena last night, there really was this feel that Tampa fans were trying to be a factor in that game. Yeah, I'm sure you saw the clips around and how they was getting into it with fans. There was
really
there was just a real intensity that I hadn't seen from some of these games, and I don't know if it was a spillover from the players making it more intense than maybe these Toronto Tampa games have been in the past. But certainly the Lightning fans are real hockey fans. I don't know if that's also because it's a hockey specific arena as well, even though they have other events there. But yeah, Tampa's really blossomed into one of those premier hockey destinations, and you wouldn't think it's a real example that if you do it right, that a southern market can actually be a hockey sport.
So, Dave, it looks like the Leafs are playing a lot rougher than they're used to, than they have the last couple years. How do you think that's going to help them when they make it out of this round finally?
Boy.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
It's only 2-1.
Well, I know, but I mean, they're looking better against Tampa Bay than they have in the past. They're not getting pushed around like they used to.
Well, Dave thinks the hockey gods are on their side, too.
Yeah. So how do you think it's going to help them in the further rounds?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't think Luke Schenn would make this big an impact that he's made in this series. Like, you can see it. Like, he has drawn all kinds of iron. I don't know if that can carry over to another series. It could just be because of his history with Tampa, winning 2 cups there. But he is in their head. And it's quite something to see. I looked at these Toronto-Tampa series, and I really couldn't find where Toronto had any sort of physical edge or something where it didn't look like Tampa was in Toronto's kitchen. And it's really reversed this year. And so you see what he's doing on the ice. You see what Noah Tari did. You see Ryan O'Reilly's ability to just game break and get like, there's a little play, I don't know if you guys saw it, where he's being accosted on a crucial breakaway. So he doesn't really have much of a chance. So he had the wherewithal to just bank the puck to himself and create a scoring chance that way that the goaltender didn't expect and nearly put it in. Like, these are the types of plays I don't really see from the Maple Leafs in the past. That all these new additions have really kind of changed the dynamic of what they bring for these types of games.
Yeah,
they're better built for the playoffs. As Mike said, it's still a 2-1 series, so anything can still happen. But I didn't think Toronto would be up, given how they played after Game 1, to see what's transpired right now.
Well, it's Schenn, it's Achari, it's Ryan O'Reilly. Like, they got guys that they previously didn't have, like guys who are battle tested and are just good at grinding. And last night was a grinded out kind of win. Like, they weren't the better team. You mentioned it in your story, like. The shot advantage, shot shares were all going on Tampa side, and that's one where Tampa probably wins it in another year, and we saw it last year. Game 6 was a prime example, and you mentioned it again. That's one where Tampa ends up winning that one in overtime, and the tables are turning now, and I wonder if it's because of that. They've got those guys like O'Reilly and Schenn and Achari, and to complement the star power that Toronto's always had.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. And yeah, you're right. Like, in those overtime games, like I remember Game 6 last year. I remember Games 5 and 6 against Montreal in 2021. Whether the game was played well or not, when it would get to that overtime, Toronto would dominate. They would be firing shots. They were doing a lot of the different things. And for whatever reason, they just couldn't get the bounce to go their way. And so now they are able to do that, get get the push, but even getting into overtime, a lot of that is some of the guys that we've mentioned. Right? So it's a good omen for them. It really is. They should feel great about it. But what's also good for the Maple Leafs, and what I'm seeing from them this year compared to last year, is when they went 2-1 in the series last year, Toronto's message, or Sheldon Keefe's message in the post game was, all right, let's take a stranglehold on this. Let's make this 3-1. And he was kind of just talking more about that than kind of respecting the level of the opponent. After each game, they keep talking about how Tampa hasn't brought their best. And I think that's actually a good thing for the Maple Leafs now, that they can go into Game 4 knowing that they kind of just escaped it. They really still need to play a better game. And if they can do that, they can actually get that 3-1 lead and still have some humble pie with them, instead of just feeling like this opponent that on paper they should be better than. So I think that sets up better for the Maple Leafs.
Real quick, what are you predicting for Game 4 there, Dave?
Yeah, I still think the series is going to be even. I didn't know what to make of Game 3. A lot of people thought, oh, what do you think? I said they're capable of anything. What I'm almost sure of, just given how close this is that I think this series gets evened up no matter who won Game 3. I think Tampa's going to bring it again. Toronto might be able to escape again with another win, but I think this is going to be a 2-2 series going back to Toronto.
Yeah, I think this one's. I think it's going to go the distance based on what we're seeing, and follow David Alter. He's at Twitter at @dalter. He's a reporter, site manager for Maple Leafs for SI.com and the Hockey News. He's also the host of Rinkwide Toronto with my buddy Rob Wong. Buddy, you've got like 1,000 jobs here, so if you're a Leaf fan, a hockey fan, you're going to want to follow Dave and enjoy Game 4. I think you're right. I think this one's coming back tied, and thanks again, Dave, for coming on.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
See you, Dave.
All
right, buddy. Thanks very much, eh?
Thank you for listening to the Hockeyverse. If you enjoyed this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and by introducing the Hockeyverse to your friends and family. Also, be sure to check out thehockeyverse.com. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter. It's specifically written for you, the diehard hockey fan. From insider news to opinion and analysis, our NHL-focused newsletter will entertain and equip you for the conversations of the day. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is the Hockeyverse.